not so professional method.
Okay, I'd like to call back into session the Middletown City Council meeting for Tuesday, February 15th, 2022. We already took roll call when we had our Robert Sonny Hill youth group here at 16:30. Do we have to do it again? We're doing it again.
Or because we actually advertise this as two meetings, a special meeting for the purpose of a work session and a
Great.
regular business meeting. So I'd rather we call the roll.
That's a great idea. Okay, Ms. Skank, please call the roll for us. Oh,
Mr.
sorry.
Farrell.
Here.
Ms. Nenny. Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Muterspaw.
Here.
Mayor Condrey.
Here. I'd like to make a motion to excuse Ms. Ninney.
Second.
Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
And at this point, I'd like to have a moment of meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Slightly out of order. Sorry about that one.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I feel like we should spread these pinning ceremonies out so we get more people at every meeting because I love the attendance. All right. The next item on the agenda are citizen comments. We have 3 citizen comments this evening. We'll start with Brent Dalton. Please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. And we have a newly improved microphone that hopefully should be able to reach everyone.
My name is Brent Dalton. I live at 4529 Rosewood Court. My business is located at 1206 Central Avenue. It's Brent Smoking Butts and Grill. I'm here tonight to talk about the Central Avenue project. This project was started 3 years ago, and we weren't there 3 years ago, but we're there now. There's other businesses that weren't there 3 years ago that are there now. We're going to lose our parking in the front of our building. We're going to lose 80% of our business. I just invested $50,000 in a brand new food truck and equipment and everything else to have out of this building. And now all of a sudden that we got this project certified, passed, everything good. Now all of a sudden we want to come around and say we're going to have a meeting next Tuesday, next Wednesday, whatever the day it is. This meeting is 2 hours, come and go, meet the developers and meet the project. Nobody come around the whole time we've been open for 15 months to tell us that we were going to lose our parking for this building. Nobody said anything, no contact, no nothing. I spoke to Grandpa Joe's today. They've been here, they know nothing. Their lease is up in November. They don't know if they're going to renew their lease. Something's got to be done. We've had comments, we've talked, I've talked to Scott. I'm not here to bash Scott. We need to improve the project, but we need to do something different. And I'm tired of the crap that we go through in and out downtown. I got 12 parking spots out back. That's not going to work. I have seating for 40 people in my restaurant. We've got to do something, and it can't be to take away parking to put in 2 turn lanes and a flower pot down the middle of the street. We try to be good people with the city. We try to do everything we can. I'm not here to be negative Nancy, but we got to do something to get better. And you guys are here to help us get better, and I'm asking you to help us. Because I don't want to renege on my 3-year lease and walk away from something. I could have went anywhere I wanted to open my business, and I chose downtown. I'm invested in Middletown. I try to give back as much as I can to this community. I try to give until it hurts. I just donated 16 meals to Madison High School for their basketball team tonight. We give until it hurts. Police officers come in, they get a first responder discount. We try to take care of the people in Middletown. We love Middletown, but to come in and destroy a business, 4 businesses, that's 1 block. I ask you to take a look at it and do something for our businesses, for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Detective Jason Wargo.
Detective Jason Wargo, 1 Donham Plaza in the basement. I'm the FOP president of the Police Officers Union here in the city. I just want to take this time to congratulate Sergeant Ryan Morgan and Lieutenant Malcolm Tipton. I've known these 2 their entire careers since I started before them, and these are 2 fine officers, and I'm expecting some good things out of you guys. So congratulations.
Thank you. And finally, we have Betsy Hanavan.
You may want to reset. I need all 3 minutes, please. Good evening, Betsy Hanavian, 800 South Main Street. As a city, Middletown must be rolling in the dough. In 2021, we spent $250,000 on a pre-development plan that no one to date has seen. We spent close to $100,000 on purchase option agreements attached to that same haphazard plan, and now we've moved from hundreds of thousands to millions. I reviewed the documentation from the City Council meeting held on February 1st, and in that documentation is legislative item number 7, which includes a staff report from Middletown's Economic Development Director to Middletown's City Manager. The report discusses the approximate cleanup costs for the former Middletown paperboard site and the plan to submit a grant application for $2.878 million. The staff report is dated January 27th. The legislation was presented to staff, by staff to City Council as emergency at the February 1st meeting, but the deadline was January 30th. Why was the city staff not all over this opportunity? Why was this presented to council as emergency legislation after the deadline had passed? Failure to plan accordingly does not constitute an emergency. According to an article in the Journal News published on February 12th, 204 brownfield remediation applications were received from 59 counties, but Middletown was not among them. Why? Because we missed the deadline. Based on quotes in the Journal News article, some city administration and staff have a no big deal, we'll get it next time attitude. But it is a big deal, especially when our own city manager refers to the project as one of highest priority. It's a big deal when monies are given on a first-come, first-served basis. It's a big deal because there are no guarantees that any money will be left. When will we approach high-priority projects with some competence? The 5 of you have been elected to hold people accountable, demand full disclosure and transparency on all fronts, and to ensure that city staff works on behalf of the people with a sense of urgency and in Middletown's best interest. If you can't or won't do that, you don't deserve the seat in which you're sitting right now. As a side note, I'm still waiting on public record requests that I submitted in November 2021. This most recent demonstration of incompetency makes me wonder if those public records are being delayed purposefully. I can't help but wonder what I'd find in those documents if the records I requested were provided to me. What is taking Middletown so long? Public records should be accessible to the public in a timely fashion. As Brett Dalton just said, the communication sucks between the Middletown City admin and the people. We need to do better because we deserve better, and I firmly believe as a city, we are better. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have our city manager reports. Or we want to do the pinning ceremony before that, or is that part of the city manager report? I'm looking on the order. Is it part of it, and that's how we're?
It is, yes.
Okay. So do we want to start with that?
Did you do council comments? I think you have council comments first.
I missed that.
All right.
I didn't think these guys had anything important to say, so I just thought I'd go ahead and go to the police. No, council comments. Mr. Farrell, would you have to add anything?
I think a lot of people in here read the article from this past weekend. I'm extremely disappointed with where we're at right now. It's tough to sit up here and say we're going to do our best when we can't even get paperwork turned in on time. It's not why I ran. It's not why I wanted to sit up here. I wanted to sit here to make a difference, and it makes me feel like I'm not. So people, they do not trust government right now, and this just makes it so much worse. I vow to you guys that I'm going to do everything I can to bring accountability back to Middletown. It's not fair. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to the 50,000 people that live in this town. They live here because they want to be here. They pay taxes here, and they deserve better, and they will get better. Thank you.
Mr. Moon?
Yes, thank you. On Mr. Farrell's comments, I agree. I'm very frustrated. I've expressed that to staff. They know how I feel. and I will leave it at that right now. I'd like to extend my congratulations to Sergeant Morgan, Lieutenant Tipton. Great job. So happy to have you here, proud to have you as part of our team, and I know you're going to make us all proud as you just step up the ladder and keep going, guys, so congratulations. Then last, I want to extend a heartfelt welcome to Dr. Sarah Nathan. Had the chance to meet her last night at the open house for the Community Foundation. She's working with a great group of people and a great foundation and a great board, so look forward to all the great work she's going to do in the communities that the foundation serves, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Muterspaw.
Yeah, just to echo what the other two said, just to apologize to the Middletown community, and it's unacceptable. We don't have an answer for it, and if we act like we do, we're lying. So it's just, it's bad, but we have to be transparent in accepting that and owning that, and that's what we're trying to do. On the promotions, I just want to say how proud I am of Malcolm and Ryan. I worked with these guys. I've worked cases with these guys. Well, actually, I stood around while they worked the cases. Thanks, Dave. I knew you'd laugh. I've seen these guys grow as police officers over the years, and to know that they're going to be leading us one day into the next decade, it makes me feel good as somebody who lives here and believes in Middletown. You cannot find two better police officers to be promoted today. So I'm really excited for both of them, and they're going to do great things for Middletown. I can assure you of that. Had a chance to sit with one of Fairfield's council members and one of Hamilton's council members this week at a meeting, and I was explaining to Mr. Moon over here that before the meeting, we're going to start meeting every few months to try to put together a team to discuss countywide problems and kind of bounce things off of each other as councils, and I think that's fantastic. It was not my idea, it was their idea, and that way, Hamilton's doing some fantastic things, and if we can take a cue from them, I think that's what we're going to try to do on making our city better. So we're going to put together a little bit of a council task force to do that. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Great, thank you. On that note, Mr. Pelenick and I met with the county today, as well as Hamilton, to work out some broader homeless, I don't want to call it solutions because there's no solution to homelessness, but to address the issue at a county or even greater level. So more to follow on that. We weren't able to solve the problem in 90 minutes, but we were able to start communicating and moving forward with some good steps. So, and for anyone watching who's considering joining law enforcement in Middletown, you may not be able to see the number of people here if you're watching on YouTube, but there are a lot of people here, and our law enforcement community has a lot of support in Middletown. So if you're thinking about joining that community, the love in Middletown is here. So come find somebody and find out more about how to join our police or fire departments, because Middletown loves you very much. And that's all I have this evening. That would bring us to this, finally now, the city manager report. So we'll start with our pinning ceremony this evening.
Well, we tried to change the format a little bit. We used to do this in private ceremony, and I thought it was good for council to see who's getting promoted and also the community. And again, we want to be a little bit like fire department. So can I call Ryan Morgan up here? Ryan's going to be promoted to sergeant. I'm extremely proud. Ryan was hired as a police officer in '07. He graduated from Dunbar High School. His wife and children reside in Mimesburg. He went to Sinclair Police Academy. He spent a couple years at Ohio State for criminal justice. Ryan has done a lot of things here at the police department, from honor guard to bicycle to a field training officer. And when Ryan was a field training officer, he was one of our toughest field training officers. And that is a good thing because he gets the new officers ready for what they have to encounter. So it's a great job. Ryan's been on the SWAT team. I was one of the commanders on the SWAT team when he first came on. I can tell you he wasn't a great shot then, but during time and training, he has actually become one of the better shots on the team because he did that through practice. We also have to do a PT test when we're on SWAT, and every PT test, Ryan always throws up, every single time. So he's not much for endurance. But he sticks to it, and I'm telling you, he is dedicated. He took the test last time, didn't make it. He was dedicated and just did an outstanding job and came in #1. He was also a canine officer. He's currently in detectives right now, so he takes all this experience and he's going to be able to lead these young officers on the street, and I couldn't be prouder for him. Congratulations. He's going to introduce who he has here.
Actually, I have a lot of people here right now, but I'm going to have my wife and my 2 kids come up to pin me. I do want to acknowledge my father, who flew 700 miles to watch this 5-minute recognition. My father-in-law, my grandmother, my grandfather, my cousins. Yeah, a lot of support, and I appreciate them all. And all, all my brothers and sisters back there.
This is your one chance, Renee. It's always good for Middletown Police Department when you have a individual that went to Middletown High School, grew up here, and comes on the police department and works his way up through the ranks, a lot like our former chief did. This is a great story. I first met Malcolm when he was playing basketball at the high school, and he feared no one. He went against anyone, get knocked down constantly because he was a little smaller than he is now. But he has stuck with it, and it's always great to see someone that's come from Middletown work his way up and give back to the community. Malcolm was hired as an officer in 2008. He became sergeant in 2017. Again, he was born and raised in Middletown. He graduated Middletown High School in 2004. Both of his wife and children reside now in Madison. He is part of the basketball program at the high school. He ran it for a couple years for the kids program. He paired with the high school. He did that for a few years. He graduated from Butler Tech. He went back and got his bachelor's degree in criminal justice. So he was working on that while he was continuing the work and also doing the basketball thing on the side. So that shows his dedication. He's part of the Honor Guard. He was a field training officer and then supervised the field training. He was a sergeant of the detective section for a couple years, which gives him the understanding of what, the investigations, the call out, and he gives him just a little bit of different routine than working the street. And he's being promoted to lieutenant. And I'm going to put a lot on him. He's going to be in charge of all the patrol division training, and I couldn't think of anybody better than Malcolm to step up and do this job. So I think Tara's going to pin.
Yes, she is. And kids will be coming down also.
So if you guys want to come down, can you introduce who you have here?
It's my wife, Tara, my daughter, Lucy, my son, Callahan, and my son, Sullivan. I have several family members here.
There's one chance, Tara.
Special mention to Mamaw. Mamaw made it. Appreciate it.
Can we win over here when you get a second? All right, all those pretty kids. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Great. You all are welcome to stay for the meeting. We also know how this goes at about this time. We'll give a minute here just so people can move about.
I'm a little bummed, Mayor. I got after party and I'm stuck here. Take a rain check. I know.
I gotta celebrate.
Dave, good
Working now? Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Mr. Palanick, whenever you're ready and feel comfortable with the noise level, you're welcome to continue the city manager report.
Okay. Madam Mayor, members of City Council, wanted to remind both City Council and the community that our strategic planning session is coming up Friday, February 25th from 4 p.m. to 7:15, and Saturday, February 26th, beginning at 8:30 and finishing at 2 p.m. We will be at the Atrium Medical Center, the 5th floor conference auditorium, same location we were last year, similar format in terms of being Friday and Saturday. We will be providing dinner to the council on Friday and then breakfast and lunch on Saturday. The agenda for this should be out soon, probably in the next several days, so look for that. Secondly, we've talked a little bit about the Central Avenue project. I wanted to make certain that people hear kind of what's coming. So beginning Monday, February 28th, weather permitting, crews will begin setting the traffic pattern for the first phase of work for the Central Avenue Improvement Project. Preliminary work will start on the east end near Charles Street and move westward. Initial activities will include project area setup, water main installation, electrical work, and other startup activities. The project at this point looks like it will go from about February 28th through June 28th, weather permitting. Central Avenue will be closed to through traffic from Charles Street to Verity, but access will remain throughout to local businesses, tenants, and residents. That will remain open. A detour for through traffic will be put into place and marked with signage. Westbound traffic will use North University Boulevard to Manchester Avenue to Verity Parkway to Central Avenue. Eastbound traffic will use Verity Parkway to First Avenue to South University Boulevard to Central Avenue. So I know that Mr. Tadish has some folks who will be working with him as part of the project to get out as much information as possible and to continue to interact with both businesses and residents. So we will do everything in our power to continue to give as much information as we can on that. And that is what we have this evening for City Manager's Report.
Thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda. Ms. King, could you please present that for us?
For your consideration this evening, we have to receive and file the following Board and Commission minutes of the Middletown's Visitors Bureau from June the 21st, September 20th, and December 20th, 2021, from the Board of Health of January 11th, 2022. To confirm the following personnel appointments: Tessa Connor to the position of dispatcher in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police; Mark Wendell to the position of water reclamation operator in the Department of Public Works and Utilities, Division of Water Reclamation. To confirm the promotional appointments of Ryan Morgan to the position of police sergeant and Malcolm Tipton to the position of police lieutenant in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police. To receive and file an oath of office for Chase Schwastowski, and to approve the purchase of a new salt auger off the ODOT contract for the Division of Street Maintenance in the total amount of $74,825.38 from Kimco USA Incorporated of Marshall, Illinois.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Can you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
On the motion agenda, we have to approve a contract with various vendors for the purchase of supplies for the Water Maintenance Division as follows. Section 1, Brass, Everett J. Prescott, West Carrollton, Ohio, $21,484.94. Section 2, Repair Clamps, Ferguson Enterprises, Cincinnati, Ohio, $30,616.58. Section 3, Valve Boxes, Sleeves, Everett J. Prescott, West Carrollton, Ohio, $40,836.40. Section 4, Solid Repair Couplers, Everett J. Prescott, West Carrollton, Ohio, $10,776. Section 5, Gate Valves, EJ USA Incorporated out of East Jordan, Michigan, $8,804.24. Section 6, Alpha Gate Valves, Ferguson Enterprises, Cincinnati, Ohio, $27,923.10. Section 7, Sewer Rings and Lids, Ferguson Enterprises, Cincinnati, Ohio, $12,171.60. And Section 8 of Miscellaneous with Everett J. Prescott out of West Carrollton, Ohio, for $3,061.80.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Ms. Ganku, please call the roll.
Mr. Mueller-Spall.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
And item B, to approve the purchase of a new fire medic off the ODS contract along with the associated sole source equipment totaling $217,990.29. A 2022 Ford E450 Medics MSV2 ambulance from Penn Care of Niles, Ohio, in the amount of $162,635. A power load and cot from Stryker of Chicago, Illinois, in the amount of $43,668.88. A stair chair from Stryker of Chicago, Illinois, in the amount of $3,961.41. A camera recording system from Provision of Byron Center, Michigan, in the amount of $2,713. Graphics packaging from Danco Lettering of Dayton, Ohio, in the amount of $2,012. Miscellaneous tools and mounting accessories from various vendors in the amount of $3,000.
So moved for adoption.
Second?
Ms. Ganku, please call the roll.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mueller-Spall.
Yes.
And item C, to authorize the city manager to enter into a professional services contract with WSP USA to provide construction administration and inspection services in an amount not to exceed $150,000 for the 21-22 street levee paving project for the 22 calendar year.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Ms. Ganku, please call the roll.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mueller-Spall.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes. Ms. Cohen, would please present the legislation for us this evening?
Certainly, Your Honor. Prior to proceeding this evening, we do have 4 matters we're asking to be considered as emergency legislation, so I'd ask if there's a motion to waive the charter requirements for 2 readings and 31 days to enactment with regards to ordinance number O-2022-14, ordinance O-2022-16, ordinance O-2022-17, ordinance O-2022-18.
I move to waive the charter provision requiring readings on 2 separate days and to declare the previously read resolutions and ordinances an emergency measure and read one time only.
Second.
Before we vote, I do not believe legislation item number 4 should be voted on as emergency. And I don't want to, because there's only 4 of us here, I don't want to derail other emergency legislation items. So I would ask that we separate the emergency legislation vote. Is that possible?
We certainly can. If you would like to handle it that way, perhaps as we go through the legislation prior to asking for each piece, we'll ask for a motion prior when we get to it.
Okay.
Would that?
Yeah, because how many are there?
There's
4 total.
There's 4 total out of 9 pieces of legislation.
I mean, that's fine. We can just do it that way. It's probably cleaner. Okay.
Is that acceptable?
Do they need to withdraw their motion?
Yeah.
Since we have a motion and a second on the floor?
Cancel it at this point.
I'd withdraw the motion.
Okay. Then we will go ahead and proceed to the first matter that's before the council this evening is ordinance O-2022-12, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into contract with Middletown Visitors Bureau for the acceptance of American Rescue Plan Act funds. Here for a second reading.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Palanick, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, you will recall that the Middletown Visitors Bureau, we proposed previously to provide $224,000 in American Rescue Plan Act funds. And as part of that first reading, there was a different budget. As for the use of that, there was some discussion by City Council that you wanted to see something different in terms of the manner in which that got used. So The big difference today is, in fact, you do have a very different budget attached to this as to the use of these funds. And I know that the chairman of the board of MVB, Mika Glazer, is here to speak to that if you prefer. And I know also Mary Hutlinger is available by Zoom if you have any questions. So those folks are here and available to answer any questions that you have.
Hi, how are you? Thanks. All right. Madam Mayor, members of City Council, thank you for allowing me to present a second budget for the Middletown Visitors Bureau ARPA request. My name is Mika Glazer Jones, and I am the president of the board of Middletown Visitors Bureau. Per the request of the council 2 weeks ago, our executive director, Mary, mapped out a revised budget proposal for the suggested ARPA funds for the Visitors Bureau's mission. Each of you should have received a copy of that proposed budget for review. The Visitors Bureau has pivoted from our original proposal and focused solely on executing a foundational mission of marketing, advertising, and promotion of Middletown. The proposed plan is for 2 years, $112,000 for each year, for a total of $224,000. Please keep in mind that the Visitors Bureau has incurred drastic cuts to our budget over the past 2 years, upwards of 50% reduction due directly to COVID. And we would like to use these federal funds to offset the financial losses in our operational plans for marketing Middletown to potential visitors so that we can keep the positive messaging momentum going. As you review the budget, you'll notice the line items reflect a very traditional strategy for promoting a community to visitors. However, please note 2 line items that deviate from this traditional approach: the Community Partner Matching Funds and the Small Business Incentive Program. The Community Partner Matching Funds are investments that MVB will make on behalf of a specific project as long as specific benchmarks are met. The community partner must submit a request in writing to the executive director, which will then be presented to the board for approval. Along with that request, the event organizers provide historical data showing the appeal to visitors in non-Middletown zip codes for the event. 2, the event organizers provide a comprehensive marketing plan that shows how the MVB can complement their efforts with a specific marketing ask. And 3, the event organizers share visitor data and contact information with MVB so we can leverage the information to craft aggressive digital campaigns on their behalf and work to promote all of Middletown. The second program has yet to be fully developed, but would take an inspiration from a passport program or loyalty program, which has been successful with the Riverway Coalition or with the Geocaching excursions program, and would provide incentives for Middletonians and non-Middletonians alike to experience for all that Middletown has to offer. We took this approach because we did not want to revert to a grant-making entity that simply handed out cash, which you might recall created problems for MVB under its prior leadership, but instead created a framework which allows our community partners to benefit from our expertise, existing investments, and requires them to put some skin in the game. And lastly, you'll see a line item for geocaching in 2022 and 23, which allows for a 3-day event this summer, and then hosting a large statewide geobash in 2023. This event, without question, brings overnight guests to Middletown for 3 to 4 days. We plan leveraging learnings from 21 to achieve additional cost savings in 2022. Please know that the MVB is dedicated to promoting our city with passion, optimism, and inclusivity within the confines and the charter and mission, and hope that you will support this request. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you. Nothing?
I'm planning to personally abstain from this because I do interact with the Visitors Bureau, not to any extreme level, but I just really want public perception to not be that I have made a vote on this. So just so council is aware, and it's not an emergency legislation item, so I hope that doesn't impact anything, but I do want everybody to be aware of that.
One of the questions I had, which I asked of Mary last time, was how can we set this up to where it's going to be sustainable? This is obviously a lot of money over a 2-year period, and I don't want this situation where in 2 years, the council then has to approve more money. We may not have the money. Have we looked into sustainability, or can we spread this out into a 3-year period? Any thoughts on that?
Well, this is catching us up from COVID, so hopefully as more travel happens, our bed tax catches up and we'll be able to have that income back to get us back to where we were. And Mary's very good at stretching budgets. She stretched what we got in 2017 for 4 years. That was the surplus, so that stretched 4 years. So she is very mindful of the budget and to keep us there, and she makes sure that she makes changes accordingly. So, like I said, this is kind of to catch us up from the drop in income that we had for the last 2 years. So once the economy's back up and everyone's back out and traveling, we should see the numbers we had pre-COVID, and we should be good to go.
Can you clear, the Visitors Bureau is a 501c3, is that
You're
accurate?
501c, Mary, are we 6?
501c6.
Yeah, C6.
Okay. Is anyone able to clarify what?
It's still a nonprofit, it's just a different one for a Visitors Bureau convention. Is that
So any, among other components of the Internal Revenue Code, one of the main provisions, 501 C6s, is any contributions to the entity are not charitable contributions, therefore tax deductible. And so when you're looking at 501c3s versus 501c6s, the traditional C3s are more charitable, where government entities have a close partnership in public services. And C6s tend to be more economic based and more business industry based, which then complements initiatives at the municipality, state, and federal levels.
I guess my thing is, and after talking to Mary last time, was I just want to make sure, and I like how it changed over to marketing as opposed to divvying out money for a grant. I think it's smart, and this ARPA money does fit the description of what is necessary for something like this, and we do need to promote Middletown the best that we can, 100%. I just want to make sure that, and I'm not saying this hasn't happened, but I want to make sure that if we vote on this, that it's equitable for all events. I get the whole heads in beds thing, I understand that, but there's some just wonderful events at, Damon Park or Douglas Park or Jayco that I know don't fit the description necessarily, but it would be great to get some publicity and promotion for those events, even though they're not huge events, I guess I should say, whether it's through social media or whatever, because I think a Visitors Bureau should promote all events the best they can. And I know we promote the big ones, the Balloon Challenge and things like that, but even the smaller events I think are big. I have family that comes in for some of the smaller events. So that's my only concern, I think. I just want to make sure that the promotion is for all events the best we can do. It's not a matter of the money, because the ARPA money is for that, but that's just my concern.
Yeah, and
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Absolutely. I think if you speak to any of our regular usual suspects, if you will, businesses and event planners, we're an open book and an open door organization. So if you choose to engage with us, we are happy to develop marketing campaigns and partner on messaging and promotion campaigns. And I would just like to flag that the caveat is you have to be willing to engage with us and return our phone calls and emails.
That's fair. That's fair.
Personally, for me, I think the best course of action would, if we have 100% of the money in front of us, over a 3-year period, I would do 40%, 40%, 20%, just in case we don't get the long-term revenue we need to. We still have a source of leftover money in the 3rd year. I think that's how I feel about it.
So my question would be then to city staff under federal guidelines, what is the expectation for disbursement and expenditure of ARPA funds?
Mary, I believe it has to be expended by the end of '24, December 31st. So that would not be a problem.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
I just want to make this sustainable long-term, just in case.
Absolutely.
I have no problem giving the money. It's just, I want to be conservative financially as far as that goes.
Well, this doesn't pertain to, because either way, this project will fall under it, but I believe that the guidance is currently that the funds have to be, pardon my, I don't know the exact word, but basically allocated by the end of 2024 and expended by the end of 2026. So let's look into that, because 2026 stuff, like, there's more room for wiggle on the spend.
Yes, there is.
Portion.
That is correct. The original language had it by the end, but now they have extended it. You're correct.
Okay, just as we move forward on other ARPA issues. Any other comments or questions from council? Thank you for also the Visitors Bureau for all their volunteer hours and time you guys put into our city. We're very grateful.
You're very welcome. It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second, correct?
So before we call the roll, so with what Mr. Farrell has suggested, do we need,
There is a motion, there is a motion and a second as is. If
Okay.
that would like to change, then the council would need to take action, but the motion and the second is as written at the moment.
So I'll withdraw my second.
So the question is, you want that written into you want that as part of the resolution? I mean, however you want it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
then I'll withdraw my first.
Does someone want to make a motion for the alteration? Is that even possible to execute right now?
So am I hearing that you are motioning that you would like to make this a 3-year budget with disbursement, with the same dollar amount dispersed in a percentage per year?
Yes.
Okay. If you would like to make a motion to amend the legislation, we would, if there could be a second, we could consider making that amendment. And if we vote to allow the amendment, then you can vote on it as amended. So are you making a motion to amend the legislation to a 3-year piece of legislation with disbursement in year 1 at 40% of the total dollar amount, $224,000, 40% in year 2 of the $224,000, and 20% in year 3 for the $224,000?
Yes.
Is there a second to that motion to amend?
Second it.
Now we're voting on whether or not you want to amend the legislation.
Is
This is
there
not-
concern with Exhibit A and the fact that it's allocated and it says, in accordance with the proposal?
This would make the appropriate amendment. It says this is how we would want to fund it. So it would amend the legislation to make that the new proposal effectively.
Okay, so it wouldn't, obviously the dollar amounts are different in Exhibit A, but that's understood as part of this. Okay, just want to make sure
We're, at the moment, there's a motion, a second to amend the legislation. This is not to adopt the legislation. This is whether or not to make that amendment.
Ms. Skink, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Abstain.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
1 second, I'm just taking some notes so that I make sure I have everything correct. Okay. Now that we have made that amendment, is there a motion to adopt the legislation as amended?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, now we would be taking a vote on whether to pass the legislation as amended. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page, this would be allocating $224,000 of ARPA funds to the Middletown Visitors Bureau to be distributed 40% in year 1, 40% in year 2, and 20% of the funding in year 3.
Ms. Skink, will you please call the roll for us?
Mayor Condrey,
Abstain.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Yes.
We'll move on to item number 2. This is one of the matters that we had asked to consider for an emergency. Given the slight change for this evening, I would ask if there's a motion to consider ordinance O 2022-14 as an emergency measure, read one time only.
I move to waive the charter provision requiring readings on 2 separate days and to declare O 2022-14 an emergency measure and read one time only.
Second. Ms. Gank, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
And now is there a motion to adopt the legislation?
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Palanick, did you want to, this is a second reading emergency, correct?
Yes. Mhm.
Wanted to clarify.
Nothing to add since last time, unless there are questions.
Any questions or comments from council?
Nope.
Okay, Ms. Gank, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item number 3 this evening is Resolution R 2022-05, a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for and accept a grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency under the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program for the replacement of the city building generator. This is here for a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Palanick, did you have anything to add to this?
Nothing to add unless there are questions.
Any questions from council? Okay, Ms. Gank, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item number 4 is the next of the emergency items. So I'd ask if there's a motion to declare ordinance O 2022-16 an emergency measure and read one time only.
Move to waive the charter provision requiring readings on 2 separate days and to declare O 2022-16 an emergency measure and read one time only.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Gank, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
No.
Mr. Farrell?
Yeah.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
We will have ordinance O 2022-16, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to extend the memorandum of understanding with One City for Recovery and declaring an emergency.
So did that pass?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Is there a motion to adopt?
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Palanick, would you like to speak to this legislation?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, you will recall that last year the city and its police department engaged with One City for Recovery to do a short-term pilot program where we would be providing social work and case management services, recovery services for dealing with some of the chronically homeless within the community, and that they would work with, in tandem, the police department to then engage with some of those folks. We then, this year, when we approved our budget, included in the budget for the police department an additional full year's amount to continue that at $50,000. But at the same time, while it was budgeted, we wanted to continue to see that pilot move forward to see just how well it would perform. And we wanted to go as far as we could to just gauge, if it was doing what it hoped to. So I believe the police department at this point feels very strongly that it has done a good job, that it is worthwhile, and that we should continue it. So we're bringing this back at this point in time to extend that, what was a current 6-month program, to now end 12 months from its conclusion, and the conclusion is scheduled for February 28th of 2022.
It sounds like the program's going very well. My concern was the emergency legislation out of it. The program's been going well since the beginning. We budgeted for it. The fact that it's here as an emergency is really disappointing, and I don't want to keep enabling the emergency legislation. So,
Could I address the emergency just to help understand the thought process? I understand your statement, I appreciate that, but we struggled a lot with, it's a 6-month pilot and wanting to be able to fully evaluate that, and you need to get some data. So if we were to want to handle this on the regular agenda, it would have been needed to come in about month 3.5 or 4 out of a 6-month pilot, and we didn't feel like there was enough data to be able to support whether we wanted to extend it, whether we needed to change it, whether we thought it was working. So there was some point in trying to wait through some of the data, and I understand council may not agree with that decision, and I appreciate that, but I wanted you to know there was some thought behind that and wanting to be able to fully evaluate the pilot program and get those extra time of data so that we can fully evaluate whether we believe this is working for the city.
So respectfully, it could have been brought to one meeting prior but a second reading emergency if absolutely needed to, but that wouldn't have changed anything. No one has ever said anything negative about the program so far. I don't see any reason why we couldn't have brought this sooner, even without data. We've got enough anecdotal data about the program that I feel like this should have come sooner. So I love the program. It's doing well. I don't want to harp on that part of it and make this a negative conversation. I just feel like include us in the conversation early. That's what council's for. That's why we have two readings, and it comes back to the communications part. Did Chief or Veronica or One City want to say anything? I know you guys have been coming up here regularly, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, the program's outstanding. Again, it comes down to relationships. They've been working with COP on a regular basis. They helped tremendously with the warming shelter, which we had 35 people in there the other day over the weekend. But Victoria can give you some more stats and some data that we requested for this meeting.
Yeah, and the data was from January the 31st, so it's current up until then, because it doesn't actually end until February the 28th, and that's when all the data would be collected. But I have interacted with 92 individuals, referred 44 of them to some kind of social services or treatment, connected 23 of them as of now.
Veronica, can you step into the black semicircle?
The little feet prints, I can do that. I'll repeat that. So the actual program ends February the 28th. So this data was collected up until January the 31st. So I've had 92 individuals that I've made contact with. 44 of them have been referred to some kind of services, would that be social services, birth certificates, IDs, housing, treatment services, counseling. 23 of them have been connected to those services. We continue to go out every week. If this continues, starting March the 1st, I would go out 2 days a week with Officer Owens and Officer Birch, and it would be for 12 months.
Great.
Yeah, that's it.
Any comments or questions for him?
Thanks for your work.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Gink, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Yes.
Item number 5 is the next of the emergency legislation, so I'd ask if there's a motion to waive the charter requirements for 2 readings and declare ordinance O-2022-17 an emergency and read one time only.
Move to waive the charter provision requiring readings on 2 separate days and to declare O-2022-17 emergency measure and read one time only.
Second.
Ms. Gink, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Now is there a motion to adopt that legislation?
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Palnick, would you like to speak to this legislation?
Yes, thank you. Madam Mayor, members of council, this ordinance contemplates entering into a memorandum of understanding with American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees Local Number 856, which is the local bargaining unit that represents 48 of our employees, 47 of which work for Public Works and Utilities, and 1 that is actually with transit. And this would provide for the payment of so-called premium pay as it is defined under the American Rescue Plan Act in an amount of $2,496 for each of those eligible employees. That's calculated as 192 hours at $13 an hour, so that it's consistent with the legislation. Within our budget for ARPA, we had budgeted $600,454 for premium pay. This specifically will cost $119,808, leaving $480,646 remaining under that line item. This was in response to initially a grievance over some emergency pay issues within the bargaining agreement. Those, in effect, weren't timely, but at the same time, we felt there was a real need to acknowledge the effort and the work and the circumstances that all those employees were going through, particularly through the pandemic. And we feel it's very appropriate that we make these payments. We also hope that it's a precedent for others throughout the rest of our organization. And so as I say that, if we calculate that potentially all of our employees at some point might receive a similar premium pay, that total cost would be $948,480, or $348,026 more than what has been budgeted in ARPA. And we will discuss that among some other things as we do our strategic planning. But for this evening, we feel very strongly that this is a good memorandum of understanding. It was approved by the membership of AFSCME Local 856 on a vote of 22 to 20. So we put it forth for recommendation to City Council.
Excuse me.
Mr. Palnick, can you speak to the grievance report number 2021-4 that states that the city administration continues to ignore and does not respond to the grievance procedure steps as outlined in the collective bargaining agreement regarding grievance number 2021-2 and 2021-3?
What are you referencing? I'm not sure what that's from.
I'm referencing the grievance report number 2021-4, and it just says that the administration has ignored and hasn't responded to the previous grievances.
I think this memorandum of understanding settles all outstanding grievances, and I think if you read it, that's clear within
I guess my question is that when it says that the city ignored it and didn't respond to it, is that, it doesn't read well to me. Can you explain that further, like why the city wouldn't respond?
I guess I'm not sure what you're reading. It's that was a correspondence during.
On the back of these are the copies of the underlying grievances.
Oh, I'm sorry. Part of the process as we moved through it, I think the very idea of grievances is sometimes there are disputes and misunderstandings over whether or not, first of all, something was filed timely and whether or not the submission back may have been a response or not a response. So that's probably part and parcel of part of that. But the bottom line is that obviously all grievances are settled in this case, and the membership voted in support of settling it. So I think we're comfortable, and I would ask them to speak on their behalf. I think they're comfortable with it as well.
I think the city would contest that something was not answered. I think when the grievances were filed, instead of following the grievance process appropriately under the contract, the union chose to file new grievances, which is fine. We'll help address them together. But the city has properly addressed and every grievance that was put in front of it. I think that is one matter that would be contested. But the point is that we're trying to resolve those concerns. The city certainly doesn't agree with what is written in there. I think there were some misunderstandings on part of the union membership, and without having to get into a big, long discussion of how the interaction has gone, I just think that would be a contested matter at this point, and we feel we've addressed every grievance that was brought before the city appropriately.
Thank you.
I have a question, and Mr. Palnick, I apologize. You might have mentioned this before, and if so, I forgot, so I apologize. But where did we come up with the $13 an hour? If we're trying to do this across the board, that's, to me, it just seems really low for employees that worked through the pandemic while a lot of people worked from home. Where did we come up with that number?
The American Rescue Plan Act specifically limits the payment of premium pay to not more than $13 per hour. So we used that number, and then we sort of, if you will, reverse engineered it by coming up with a total amount of hours times the 13 to come to a negotiated amount in total. So the goal was to reach a negotiated amount, and we used the ARPA number to get there.
Okay.
I would just say that I'm glad this is coming to us. I'm glad we're going to get these funds out to folks. I hope that things will move along with the other units and the other employees, because these folks worked very hard in very difficult circumstances over the last 2 years, and I'm pleased to get this premium pay out.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Gink, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The next matter is the last of the matters we're asking you to consider as emergency, so I would ask if there's a motion to waive charter provisions and declare ordinance O-2022-18 an emergency and read one time only.
I move to waive the charter provision requiring readings on 2 separate days and to declare O-2022-18 an emergency measure and read one time only.
Second.
Ms. Skanky, please call the roll.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mueterspall?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Is there now a motion to adopt the legislation?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Pelenick, would you like to present this legislation?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of council, when we first adopted the agreement with community center partners to do the pre-development project work for the town mall project, we acknowledged the fact that our partners from Warren County and Warren County Port Authority would be paying portions of this, and we wrote the agreement such that it was only covering our portion. Our friends at Warren County have asked if we could in fact serve as fiscal agent so that they will still pay the same amounts, but we will wind up paying it all and then just accept the reimbursement from them. So this is rather a simple cleanup to now make our amount to be paid is not to exceed $216,500, which then still acknowledges that we will only pay $78,350, but the remainder of those funds will come from Warren County. So this has us acting as fiscal agent.
Does this place any additional liability on the city of Middletown serving as the fiscal agent for this instead of how it was previously?
It shouldn't, because we were the contracting agent and we are still the contracting agent. It really just has us actually making the payment of $216,500. The only concern it would have is if we felt uncomfortable that Warren County weren't going to pay us and that we would want a separate agreement with them saying that they will pay us. But that's really the change that would happen.
We have confidence Warren County is going to come to the table on that, or I guess the staff have that confidence?
I personally have that confidence. I think they've exhibited the kind of professionalism and standards that there's no reason to believe that they wouldn't do that. So we know where to find them too. So
That's one thing that I'd say. We sat at a meeting with Warren County and about a month ago, and it gives us instant credibility. I think working with Warren County as a partner. They're very fiscally sound. They're known as a professional organization, and I have no qualms about working with Warren County at all. I'm excited about it, actually.
As long as it doesn't open us up to long-term liability, that would be the only thing that I would be concerned with, so.
And I want to make sure as we move forward on this project, that's always what's keeping me up in the middle of the night, is somehow along the way, we all of a sudden are accepting more and more fiscal responsibility to the point where we are funding 3 sheets of ice from our general fund every year, and I don't want to be doing that. So I know that's not where we're at right now. I'm just keeping an eye to that particular topic. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Mueterspall?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Item number 7 this evening is ordinance O-2022-19, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Airport Management Solutions to provide fixed-base operator services at Middletown Regional Airport and declaring an emergency. However, no action is requested until March 1st.
Mr. Pelenick.
Madam Mayor, members of council, we have been kind of foreshadowing now for quite some time that our goal long-term at the airport was to find both a very professional fixed-based operator as well as ultimately a very professional management company that would take over the long-term recurring operations of the airport, make them much more professionalized, and turn them around financially. We have finally reached the opportunity tonight to bring you a contract with a fixed-based operator, Airport Management Solutions. They would be our FBO. The city issued a request for qualifications. We received 4 separate companies that responded. We then conducted interviews that included both staff and representatives of the Airport Commission, and ultimately determined that the best provider would be Airport Management Solutions. In this particular case, the contract is written such that it would be an initial term of 1 year, then with options for additional renewal terms. The cost to the city would be $70,000 in a yearly flat fee, along with a series of fuel fees that escalate on per gallon sold so that it provides a greater percentage of the total for them as they sell more, so that there is motivation to sell more, basically. I'd like to have Susan speak to this a little bit, and then I think we have representatives here as well from Airport Management Solutions. Susan's been very involved in this from the beginning, so I know she has some more background for you, and then we'd like to introduce those folks so that you can understand a little bit more about them.
I think Mr. Palahniuk gave a great introduction. We're really excited to be potentially working with Airport Management Solutions, or AMS, because I like a good acronym. AMS was founded in 2010, based in Nashville, Tennessee. They maintain FBO operations currently in Tupelo, Mississippi, and Greenville, Mississippi, provide additional airport or airline maintenance to air carriers in Nashville as well as Greensboro, North Carolina. We have been speaking with these gentlemen. I know they have spent a lot of time in the area interviewing airport stakeholders, working with the appropriate parties to try and understand the issues and the operations at the airport, and trying to help determine where they can add value. I've personally been very impressed with the ideas that they've brought to the table, and we're really excited about the partnership. This is slightly different than our traditional FBO, where we have had an owned FBO. We've contracted out all the operations. This brings in a managed FBO. The city does maintain some financial responsibilities for assisting in the operations, with the idea that they will ramp up operations and eventually generate additional income. I would say for the 2022 year, the proposed budget is within the amount that we have previously budgeted for airport operations, so I don't believe there's going to be any extra financial burden at this point in time. And then, as Mr. Palahniuk indicated, there is a separate part of this that is incentives on fuel sales. Those incentives that we've set up are within the margins for the fuel sales, so effectively it would be a self-generating source of income. Unless you have any additional questions, I would like to introduce Corey Gillard, who is here from AMS, along with members of his team. Just ask these gentlemen to step down, be able to introduce themselves and a little bit about their company.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen, Mr. Palahniuk, Madam Mayor, and the members of council. I'm Corey Gillard, owner and president of Airport Management Solutions and our family of companies. And we are very excited to be here after almost a 12-month process from the initial RFP, submitting the response and doing our initial site visits and interviews. We are looking forward to being a part of this community and helping bring professionalism and service to the airport. I'd like to introduce our Director of Business Development, Eric Larson, who will be in charge of running this FBO operation, or in charge of developing the FBO operation and in this line of business.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council and those in attendance. We're very much looking forward to getting started in Middletown. We've been talking about and talking with Middletown for quite some time now, so I feel like we've kind of been here in the background a little bit. Just to give you some background on us, the three of us here are all pilots, so we are very much involved in aviation. We have backgrounds in FBO management. Corey is also an A&P and IA as well. So we are involved in all facets of aviation. I sit on an airport board in my home community, so I'm used to dealing with some of these FBO issues from both sides of the table. So I can understand things from a board's perspective and from an airport's perspective, as well as from an FBO's perspective. And sometimes those things are conflicting, but most of the time they run the same. So we're very much looking forward to getting involved in the community, getting involved in the airport, listening to what every stakeholder has to say, and seeing if we can't build up the airport community. And with that, a very important member of our team is Mr. Kevin Williams. Kevin is our regional FBO manager, and he'll be on site here in Middletown quite a bit as we get started up and staffed up. So Kevin, if you might talk a little bit about how we're going to get staffed up.
Well, sure. We're thankful to be here. Like I said, I'm Kevin Williams. I'm the regional FBO manager, so I'll be kind of overseeing the day-to-day operations of things and staffing and dealing with the people who are working here at the airport, training and those kind of things. So we're happy to have this opportunity. We're here tonight to answer any questions y'all might have from us, and also we thank Ms. Cohen for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. on to the next matter.
No comments or questions from anyone?
I did have a question. Under the managed agreement, we retain control of fuel, is that correct?
Yes.
And then what about leases to just all the other tenants? We could keep that as well?
We maintain that as well.
What are we currently spending a year? I guess I would say at a loss on the airport right now. I don't have that number in front of me.
We have been subsidizing the airport typically between 250,000 per year
So,
for the last several years.
so this would subsidize it more than we currently are, correct?
It certainly is our hope that it won't, because part of this, we believe, is as these fuel sales increase, that they will generate greater revenues. So the hope is ultimately, as these folks have more activity, more fuel sales, that will decrease. That's the goal.
We do some sort of workshop so at least I can understand more. We're essentially taking in a word that this is, and I'm not saying it's not the right person to go with, but I would like to understand more from my perspective so I can give a wholehearted vote on it.
It may be helpful. Several members of our airport board were very much involved in this, and I know one in particular is very involved in the aviation industry. We could certainly have those folks come in. That would probably be helpful as well. So,
Happy to organize whatever information you would like. If you want to do it for the next council meeting, I'm certainly happy to get that organized. I would just ask if you could provide some additional clarification on what information you would like. Is it airport operations? Is it how we got to this point? Is it everything?
I guess a little bit of everything. Yeah. I don't know how you guys feel. I know Tal.
I agree.
Board,
I don't know enough about it. I mean, I can read all day long, but it's better to have people up here talking.
So from a procedural standpoint, we have the strategic planning sessions coming up, meeting after this. And I will need either the mayor to request a special meeting or 2 council members to request a special meeting to set up a workshop either before our next regular council meeting in March or at another time. So I just want to make sure that you know what you need to do to request that special meeting workshop. Is that correct? Yes.
Just an email?
Email will be fine.
I think we should do it before the next council meeting, obviously.
That'll give us a chance to get people, get the right people here too to talk to.
And I would say I'm obviously happy to attend. I'm also ready to move on, so if you two wanted to get together with staff on your own and meet, you have the ability to do that.
I would also note that as part of our strategic planning session, we did anticipate a session on things related to the airport, particularly both FBO and management. So it may very well be able to be that we could do some of that at that session.
Any other questions or concerns? The next matter is item 8, Resolution R 2022-07, a resolution amending resolution number R 2021-55, authorizing a contract with the State of Ohio Department of Transportation for the 2022 urban paving program on a portion of State Route 4 from Titus Avenue to Germantown Road and declaring an emergency. No action requested until March 1st.
Mr. Palanick?
Madam Mayor, members of council, this is essentially a relatively simple amendment to our contract with ODOT for the 2022 urban paving project. As Susan just described, originally we had budgeted a certain amount for that work, which is our local match as part of the contract that the state work, and that was $241,736. Once the actual bids came in, and they came in higher than anticipated, our new actual local match post bids will be $257,698. So we need to amend the contract by $15,962 to cover that addition as a result of the actual bid price. We do have it budgeted already within our general capital fund. The budget was at $275.
Any comments or questions?
on to item number 9, ordinance O-2022-20, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with Middletown Holiday Hoopla, here for a first reading.
Mr. Palanick.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, as you know, we've heard a lot about the first annual Holiday Hoopla winter event downtown, and there was a request for some additional help and funding, and I realized that Council has said you didn't want to take up any individual event requests, and we needed a policy and a program for that before any sort of determinations were made. But in this case, it's really looking at paying for costs that already were put into effect for unexpected electric infrastructure. And since the electric infrastructure was placed permanently onto a property that the city owns, we felt that it would be appropriate to reimburse the Holiday Hoopla organization for the $86,759 that wound up being basically that unexpected cost, but that does in turn now give value and benefit to the city because the Swallens lot on which this was placed is city-owned and can be later utilized as it's redeveloped. So these funds would come out of undesignated general fund reserve if you felt compelled to make these payments. And I know there is representative here from Holiday Hoopla. I think Evan Kaiser is here, so if you have any specific questions, I know she would be more than happy to respond.
And on these items, these are items that some of these that we now own.
Yes, it's physical electric infrastructure that is part of the
Essentially
property.
paying for infrastructure that is going to serve our benefit.
Yeah, I believe so.
So, Wi-Fi, is that the city's Wi-Fi that was used?
That's not part of this request either.
So I'm looking at City of Middletown holiday contributions. So
It didn't really work for us. Unfortunately, we weren't able to use the city Wi-Fi because what we needed is things to run a credit card or people to use the app, and it wouldn't let us do it. So after speaking with Chriselle further after the fact, I didn't know that there was another level of Wi-Fi, but apparently there's like a secure Wi-Fi that we could have gotten on, but that wasn't enabled for us this year. So hopefully next year, because we bought all these cameras that were supposed to hook up to that Wi-Fi so we could monitor things, but we were never able to do that because we didn't have a secure Wi-Fi line. So that's
Did
not
the
something.
city expend $3,153 on Wi-Fi for Holiday Hoopla?
It was supposed to be, from what I understood, for Portopia and all the events that go on downtown with Downtown Middletown. It wasn't specifically for us.
Mr. Palanick, can you speak to that?
It's my understanding that we did spend that with the belief that it would wind up serving that, and I'm hearing that perhaps it obviously didn't work nearly the way it should have.
But we did expend the funds.
We did expend the funds, yeah.
what was the overall cost of the Wi-Fi? What do we not pay for this Wi-Fi anyways?
This was, I believe, an extension of it, making it more robust in a particular location. We do have it downtown, but there were certain areas that it had to be extended to.
What was the overall cost of that? Was it $3,153?
The overall Wi-Fi, separate from this?
I guess if you want to call it boosted to another area, was it $3,153?
I believe so, yeah, that was my understanding.
Okay. Was there ever a contract of any sort written?
There was no request on the part of the Holiday Hoopla to ever have Wi-Fi added to that area. That was not something in our first year we thought, I mean, I thought that was gifted. That was part of the bigger downtown Middletown improvement project. That was not something we ever came to the table requesting. Okay. For the first year, it was ice rink and lights for us. That's pretty much what our goal was in 8 months. Yeah.
So the electric that was put in, is there a developer who's looked at that electric and said that that is usable for residential development? This is a question for the city staff.
Scott here? Scott, I don't know. Scott, I don't know if Scott is able to answer that. I have not spoken to any specific developers that have said that. I know there's a certain capacity there, and it's a good deal more than was before, so.
It just looks nothing like I would anticipate if someone were to go to put a residential.
Yeah, you're thinking of the wood set up there on the side where they have the meters.
Yeah.
The bigger cost was the transformer that went in. to effectively operate that chiller system, which is very robust and would, at least by my understanding, talking to the chief building official, potentially run a building off of. Now, we did not engineer it per se to that effect, but based on his, general knowledge, he felt it was significant. And as, if I recall, 3-phase 480.
It was 520. We had to go up
Okay.
a little more.
So, and I'm certainly not an electrical expert, so I don't want to pretend like I know it all, but it was a very large service to run that we would expect could run a potential building there.
Okay. I mean, if these are funds and we're saying this infrastructure investment, I would want confirmation from some level of developer that would confirm what the staff report is claiming, that it could actually run a residential, commercial something. Because the last thing I would want to do is say, yes, let's put funds towards something that's an infrastructure improvement, and somebody comes in to develop it and says, this is nothing like what we need, and we're got to spend the funds anyway. So I just...
Yeah, and we sort of talked about, I know when I was talking to the chief building official, he kept saying, well, what exactly are you going to put there? And then I can tell you if it's enough. But so I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I know that's hard to,
Right.
without but if the largest, whatever residential development we could imagine on that property, would it suffice for that, or would it even help, or would they have to dig it out or redo it? I mean, that's my question, right? I just don't have the warm fuzzy that this is what ultimately would be needed for that property, and I just want to know that.
Madam Mayor, can I speak to that real quick? So with regard to that space, the Swallens lot is on a debris field, which is quite significant. So building a building on that would be an epic cost for the city. So right now, what this electricity will do, will run our future events. You can have huge concerts there, you can have a big screen TV, you can have an ice rink. There's a lot of things you can do with this now. And what I'm trying to say is, what this holiday hoopla brought to this city was not only an event that we could be proud of, it also brought revenue. I brought a business here. So there was that ice rink was a business. It made over $50,000 in revenue, and I paid 12 people. So it also brought pride in the city. Our foundation, we're a nonprofit, we raised over $396,000 in less than a year, in 8 months. So that shows to me that this is a testament of the businesses in Middletown and the citizens. The citizens contributed over $33,000 to this event. So, the transformer's $20,000. But what else had to happen to this thing? I had to pay an excavator to excavate it. I had to pay an electrician to hook it all up, who was a certified electrician. And then I had to pay for a generator for 24 days to run an ice rink because I didn't have the right communication between the city and Duke. Said they didn't communicate, so I had to buy that these were not projections on my budget. I spent my budget wisely. You got all the lights, you got the ice rink. We had a very well done, professional, an event that the city could be proud of. And at that time, our city really needed something to be proud of because there was a little bit of a crazy town going on, but right before this event. So what I'm saying is reimbursing us $86,000 for something that is infrastructure that the city can use for anything they want down there. And you can run a building. It's 580 watts, 3-phase. I mean, it's a big generator. You're going to get your return on that investment. And that's just a small portion of the total gap. And we all were sitting at the table with an electrician, with the excavator, and it was a go. It was always a go. No one told me no. So if you say, no, I'm not going to pay for this, then the hoopla is done in its first year. That's just, no one in the history of Middletown has raised over $396,000 in 8 months. And I don't know if I can continue this, but I do know that the businesses and the people in Middletown, I had over 1,200 testimonials and Facebook comments saying that this is the greatest thing that ever happened in Middletown. Please make it happen again for us. So, you've got to decide, are we going to fight over, is it enough electricity to build a 5-story building in 10 years? Or can we have an event for the next 10 years there that'll benefit the city and build community pride? That's the question.
I think one of the important things is the hoopla paid for these, but we actually own these.
Right. So I paid out of my light budget for this.
And I'm grateful for all the efforts, and it's a great event. I'm looking at, the last council spoke about the Swallens lot. We were with a developer in Hamilton. The next time we're talking about the Swallens lot, there's a permanent skating rink.
It's not permanent.
Well, 10 years. I need.
I would like it to be permanent.
Well, that's the ask.
Yeah, right.
You are asking essentially for us not to develop that land. So from a strategic perspective, this is a 180 shift economically from what we were last talking about use of that land. And now I'm hearing from a citizen that the land isn't developable. I've never heard that from city staff. I don't know if that's true. I'm kind of in this.
We just
what is
found
going
it
on
out
with
when we
this
were
lot?
boring this electricity that the debris field is so intense.
If I may, it's an urban site. Like many urban sites, when demolition happened, they probably didn't fully remove all the materials. That's pretty typical. But a new development expects that. They remove that. We expect that. So it's a very developable lot. There's just some costs involved in removing some of the debris that exists there.
And this rink can be moved anywhere, whatever you tell me the site to be.
Yeah, you're not trying to make it a permanent.
No, I mean, I would like somewhere in Middletown to have a permanent rink, but you tell me where that is. I'm not trying to say right now, and I was told when I came to this idea to Chriselle and Jim, that this was a temporary situation. They didn't know what the future of the Swans lot was, and I said, fine, let's just move it year to year. The permanency would be if I put a cement pad there. Then that's where it's gonna go. But right now, I can put it wherever you tell me to put it.
Well, I certainly understand what the mayor's saying, but I'll tell you that I fully support the event. I think it's phenomenal, and I think it's got potential to be as big as Light Up Middletown, which everybody comes to that. And I think just having it down there, I talked to the downtown business owners and the people involved, and they said their business was incredible during that time. And to me, that's important. So, I think there's legitimate questions about that lot. The city has never known what that lot's going to be, and I've been here a long time. So with that in mind, I think that, hopefully you understand that we do support what you're doing. I think it's great. And I think the kids in Middletown and the people in Middletown deserve something like that every year.
We just heard from the community, Sonny Hill, there's not enough things for the kids to do in town.
So I appreciate it. Yeah. But I understand the mayor's questions. Those are legitimate questions. I get that because I know where she's coming from.
Right.
We don't know what's going to be there eventually. So I understand that.
Yeah, but I think.
Okay.
How many days was Hoopla open?
So the Hoopla was, the total days that the rink was on property was 49 days. The rink was only open 33 days, and that was because we had no power for 11 of those days because of the miscommunication between the city and Duke. And then there were 5 days that were weather-related closures. But we made over $1,500 a day on the rink.
So I'm just, dollars and cents, this event cost $14,660 some a day to be on that site, given it costs approximately $500,000 to put on.
Right, and that was the first year. It's not, projections for next year are not that way. There's just a lot of upfront costs. So for next year, I already have the electric in there. I've built, I've gotten a lot of the lights. So next year's budget, the 2022, which I'm not asking for any help at this moment with, is scheduled to be about $250,000, which was this year, is half of what this year was. There's just a lot of startup costs for an event of this magnitude.
And I guess part of my other thing is, I know we all, as donors and companies and businesses, have a certain amount of money we're able to give back to the community each year. And so I look at, certain events like this that took $500,000 of those dollars for 33 days. And I'm not saying it wasn't a great event. I just am saying it was really freaking expensive.
It was really a lot of time. There was a lot of time.
I understand that, and I'm not trying to argue. I am very fiscally conservative when it comes to stuff, and I see the price tag, and I'm like, oh, it's a lot of money.
And again, it's going to go down. And the other thing you have to think about, too, is during the course of this event, there were 19 workers here that spent 27 days and 22 nights. So they were in hotels. They were renting things from Ten's Rental. They are buying clothes at the local shops. They're eating in every restaurant in town. So there's a lot of trickle down. And I guess, I know you think that this was just we could have extended it. It could still be open right now. I knew that this year I had to put a fine line on it, and the city wasn't going to, I didn't have money from the city yet, so I chose to just stick in my budget. But this could, lots of cities have theirs still open. This is, you have to think, what do you want to give the people of Middletown? This is something for the people of Middletown. It's not always the most fiscally perfect, but if I'm out there willing to bust my butt to raise $396,000 in 8 months, I think the city should be able to give me at least 20%. I'm only asking for 20% of the total budget. That's it. And
can we get to did the city promise the funds? because I heard two different stories from both sides here, and I want to come together on this one. Did the city promise, what did the city promise or not promise?
In terms of?
Support to Hoopla. City staff, I mean.
We've tried to be supportive throughout, and that includes, the monies that you see and the in-kind work that we've done. And we've thought this is a really great project, and we're bringing it here today because we think it's appropriate and fair, and we certainly support this. We never promised that it would. Obviously, we don't have that ability. You make that decision. So, but we told Evan and the folks from Holiday Hoopla that we would not only bring it forward, but advocate for it. And it's obviously your decision.
Yeah, when we met, we were told, the Community Foundation was going to support us to such an extent, and the city was going to fill gaps if necessary. And trust me, I'm hoping there's no gap necessary to ask you all for at all next year. I mean, this is a one-time deal expenditure. I shouldn't have to buy any of this next year. It's already there in the lot, so that's off my plate. So this was just go do it. We've gone down this path. You've worked so hard. No one thought I could raise this money. So we were doing it, and they said, yeah, just keep going. We'll just keep going. So,
because when we spoke privately, you told me the city committed to the $80-some thousand.
They committed to meeting $70,000 to $80,000 of, meeting the gap. That's what they said to us.
Okay, and I'm hearing that wasn't said. I just want to
It was said during an economic development meeting at the foundation.
We clearly said we would strongly advocate for it, and we're doing that.
Yeah. Is this possible? The city of, have you seen this document, the city of Middletown's expenditures so far for Hoopla? I didn't think it had been shared with you. Can you just, you don't have to speak to it right now, but if you don't mind, just having a look over it and if you feel like those are accurate expenditures that have been made by the city. I'm not asking you to speak to it in the moment because this is the first reading and I want you to have a look over it. But
yeah.
I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I just am hearing very different numbers and commitments from each side. And I want to make this a good cohesive, because if this is going to be a longer term partnership, we can't be having this poor communications on it. So I want us to all be on the same page and make sure we're talking about the same dollars and cents and commitments.
Right.
So.
Yeah, they did. We did get help with security, and I do want to thank the officers who took their off-duty time. We did get money from the city to pay those off-duty officers. We got $20,000, and they did help us pay with security for that. So that is included. The water use.
When we spoke, you said the city provided about $2,000 of support to date, and
$20,000. So $20,000, and that's listed in my budget that I sent you. So if you look at the donation for security, they gave me $11,000 for DMI, and then for the city of Middletown, it was like $3,800. So total, that was what we gave to Middletown. And then when you look at the ice or what the water usage, our water usage was less than, it was $87.60. They have us down here as water usage of $200, but this is me calling the meter.
And I'm not trying to nickel and dime.
So, it's just we're within range. But I didn't ask for Wi-Fi. The magazine ad was a combo ad, so I don't know why that's put just on Hoopla. That was advertising all winter events here in Middletown. That was, the Light Up Middletown. That was the Sorg. That was a combo ad. Security definitely, and then ad design, winter media. Again, those are not things I came to request. If that's what they did in kind for me, yes.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
No problem.
I was just off by an entire decimal point on what was told to me earlier and what was given, so I just need to get.
Yeah, the total's 86,000. So our gap, and the gap is all Duke transformer, electric excavation, bundle electric for the electrician, and the generator came to about $92,019, but we had some extra money that I raised, so the only gap I have is $86,759.30, and that's the 20% city ask that I'm asking out of my total budget.
And the city is claiming to have spent approximately $34,000 to date on Hoopla.
And again,
I'm just putting out there, that's what the numbers where we stand, just so we're all communicating.
I don't agree with that, but because some of these I didn't ask for. I shouldn't have to be paying for things that weren't requested on my.
And that's, we can take that.
What's the 5,000 for labor and materials for miscellaneous setup assistance?
Where's that?
That's the second thing.
So that would be, that I'm not going to ask for that this year, so that would be if I was going to come to you and ask for support for 2022, my goal is to use the citizens' money as fiscally as possible, responsibly, and then only use it for things that will benefit them. So that would be you're asking for the 5,000 for the, is that the marketing piece? Is that what you were asking for?
No, the second thing down on Public Works,
It's back on this.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what that is, unless it's because
Contributions, yeah.
I don't know what that is. I don't know, because they did still charge me for.
You don't need,
It's
that's just
in-kind.
city's in-kind effort, our public works employees.
Yeah, but I got charged overtime for public works employees, another $600 just recently, so I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that's clear as mud.
Yeah. I just know what I know. I know what my bills are, and I know what I paid out of my budget, and I know what I asked the city for and what they've given me up to this point. And that's all the other stuff I don't know what that is.
So the largest donor was Middletown Community Foundation, correct?
Yes.
So to the mayor's point, could you get us a transcript, or maybe we could talk to the head of the foundation as far as what the city's asked for in amounts of like what the largest thing would be over the past few years, to see if we've had any ask like that, or because obviously she's correct and we don't want to run out of people we can ask for money from, but have we been asking for money from the community foundation in the past?
Never. This was the first ask, and this was something that is under economic revitalization and economic development, and there was no one else in that category, and I fit the bill for that. This was all economic revitalization project. This was not, an event that's just, giggles. This was supposed to help all the businesses down the street, draw people out of Light Up Middletown, and add to commerce. And I added to commerce with workers. I added to commerce with employees of a rink. And we brought over 10,000 people into town. And that was a year I didn't even do any of my own advertising. Like, we really just did Facebook. That was it, because I didn't have any money to put toward marketing other than some billboards around town and some local signs.
Well, a lot of friends go to it.
Oh, good. I'm glad if they
And
had.
can you confirm, was the ice rink, it was rented, right?
Yeah, so it cost me this year $176,252. And that includes a manager, but that doesn't include payroll. I had to do payroll on top of that.
Just a thought, and this isn't so much a quest for you, Evan, but maybe for city staff, thinking about the Wi-Fi downtown and maybe a DMI app. I know when we talked to Cincinnati Bell, however many years ago, we talked about advertising, and I'm wondering if there's a way to push the event and push Light Up Middletown when people come into town and they access the public Wi-Fi or they access DMI, that these things come up. Because we got two great events, and it'd be wonderful to attract more people down. And I know that's not necessarily this topic, but I'm just thinking.
That was the goal of the
We have this
Wi-Fi.
public Wi-Fi. It'd be great to harness that more completely in the future years for this event. So.
I very much agree. I think that's something that DMI certainly can look at, should look at, and I think probably is a project for them.
Is it possible at some point to get some data on the use of the public Wi-Fi downtown? Is the contract through DMI or is it through the city for the Wi-Fi?
I don't recall. Is that
I know,
DMI's or
way off
ours?
topic,
I believe it is through the city at this point.
Okay. Then we would have the data if it's with us, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to see if people are using it and for what, because the whole point is to be able to collect data to be able to market back to them ultimately.
Where's that Wi-Fi? It's out of Torchlight Pass, is that correct?
On the back of it.
So that's,
But it's Bell Fiber. Bell owns it.
And just another request, if this does continue and I can find a way, and they're redoing the streets, I would like to put lights and trees. So if you could put some electricity by some trees around here, because I can't, all of Central, there's no electricity by trees. So as you're planning these new areas, if I'm able to continue this on, that is something we would like to light the streets. It's very dark downtown, and even asking Duke to maybe if we can get a different LED light in those lights, even on Central right there by, Broad, and it's very dark down there. So just
We're running conduit for for fiber, but maybe this could be the same use. Aren't we, when we tear out streets for
Yes, we
street
are.
replacements, we're
There's an outlet by every tree, then I'm willing to pay.
Also, the portion of Central has all that. So the Central project will have all that, the portion that we're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, do we have any items for new business this evening?
Got a call today from the Butler County Land Bank. I'm the Land Bank representative for Middletown, and they brought up the idea of they could essentially, through a grant through the state, get the Schneider building torn down, Manchester building separate, but the Schneider building torn down. The state covers 75% of that cost, and then 25% of that cost would go to the city. So I was asked to kind of sort of bring that up here tonight and kind of see in an open discussion. It's obviously you drive by it, it's an eyesore. When people are driving to the Y, when they're driving to the city building, these types of places, they see it. It looks horrible, right? So we don't have a long-term plan for it at this point, but at the same time, I don't think it doesn't look savable to me. I'm not an expert in that field, but I just wanted to have some open discussion with that. Because if we, once again with the grants, if we don't use them, then that goes away, and then long-term, are we going to end up paying to tear the whole thing down potentially? So just want to have that open discussion.
It would be helpful for me at some point to have someone who is an expert on building salvage to go and put some sort of an estimate, dollars and cents wise, on what it would take to renovate over there, because right now I feel like we're in this position where we're making emotional decisions because we have no data to make a logical decision regarding the Manchester or Snyder, for that matter, building. And I don't know how much it would cost to bring someone in to do that, but
What's the time frame for the grant?
Has to be submitted by the end of the week.
oh, well, that's
I believe
not.
is what she said. It's at worst case, it's the end of this month. It has to go on the.
That building's on the National Historic Register.
Well, Susan, can you speak to that more?
It is on the National Historic Registry. When I spoke with Mr. Farrell earlier today, I indicated we were double checking because I was not aware at the time, but we did confirm it is on the National Historic Registry. That does add an extra piece to this. Whenever you utilize federal funds to demolish a building, particularly of that age and on the National Registry, you have to go through an additional set of review. It's commonly called a Section 106 review. That can add a significant amount of time to this process. I think with Lincoln, we were looking somewhere in the 6 to 9 months. Not saying it would exactly be 6 to 9 months this time, but it is a process. And so we would need to go through that. I believe Development Services staff spoke with the Land Bank today and asked whether that would be a concern in applying for this grant. They indicated we could put the application in. They did have a concern about our ability to be funded in the first round because of that process, because we can't actually utilize the funds until that 106 review is done. We can always put in the application and see how it goes, or it would make us eligible for later rounds.
What's involved in the 106 process? Like, would that help us answer our dollars and cents question with, or is it?
It would not, no. It really is about public discussion, going through various historic boards and commissions, acknowledging what the building is, documenting it, that type of thing. Because essentially what you're saying is our plan is to demolish it, and then you're taking the time and effort to review it as to its significance. Is there something that should be saved? Should it be documented, archived, et cetera? And then before you ultimately do the demolition, you've done those things. And that's what happened with Lincoln School. So it doesn't preclude demolition in any way. It just acknowledges the fact that you should take some time to make certain as you're making that decision that there's a public process to it and you document anything and everything of what it meant to the community.
So is that something we want to pursue?
I think it's worth looking into.
And I would add, if I could say, we would have started this a long time ago, and staff is strongly supportive of demolishing that building. But we know that past city councils have been very attached to both the Manchester and the Snyder building and believed that it could be adaptively reused in the future. So we were not bringing that forward, nor were we starting a Section 106 project until or unless you, as policymakers, decided that that was an appropriate move forward. So the instant you do, we are be more than happy to both begin the process 106 as well as to look for every possible source of funding that would allow us to do that. But the reason we as staff have not pursued anything was because of the past situation and position by people on the city council that made it pretty clear they didn't want to pursue tearing it down.
That's kind of where I am. I think that building is so attached to the Manchester. There's heartstrings attached. That we need a deliberate process with some public communication on doing that before in 1 week we just say we're going to apply for a grant, and then what if we get the grant and then we decide afterwards we don't want the grant for whatever reason? Where does that put our relationship with the land bank, or with, would it be a land bank grant, or who's administering?
It's through the state, but they apply. They're actually very supportive of it. They would not hold, quote unquote, anything against us for that. They said that they would be happy to remove us from the list if we decide to not go forward with it. I think it would be smart to at least sort of get our ducks in a row to figure out what we might want to potentially do with that, and at least have the ability to do.
Is that one of the I have no idea what we're talking about at the strategic planning session yet. Is this one of the topics? The Manchester?
It was probably going to get discussed, certainly. Some of what you're already discussing this evening was going to be a topic. We are working with a developer that has not done enough effort yet to really understand the economics of it, but that would be looking at that particular site, so.
But even if they decide to do something with it, we're essentially 9 months behind already, whereas we could go ahead and start knocking that time off, theoretically.
I'm not opposed to applying for a grant for demolition. I really need to see some dollars and cents to be able to support a decision, to demolish or try to renovate, just because I think in the long term for our city, any decisions made up here are going to get scrutinized by citizens, rightfully so, and without any sort of idea. I mean, we can say, it's economically unfeasible. Well, okay, we can say that, but how do we know that, and where does that, come from? And there's a lot of emotions attached, and I think we really need to come at this from more of a logical perspective. So I need to see some dollars and cents before I'm comfortable saying get rid of the buildings. But at the same time, if we can apply in parallel for a grant that may or may not, pan out in the end, and it's not held against us for having applied, I guess I don't see the harm in that. I don't know the efforts involved in the grant, though, either, and how Herculean it would be to even get to that point.
From what I understand, they're pretty much, we do the paperwork and they take it from there.
I think if you would like to direct to pursue the application, we can certainly get that done. I think it's just a matter of, do you want us to do the application plus start the 106 review? Do you want us just to put in the application and see how it goes? And just making sure we're all on the same page about what you would like to see happen.
Is this a one-time grant?
Well, you never really know the answer to that, I guess.
And that's the problem. At this point in time, there's a program. Will it continue? Maybe. We don't know. So it's a one-time today. Maybe it'll get extended. Maybe there'll be more funding. But right now, it's hard to say.
It's tough. I guess the way I look at it is, why not pursue something? We can always take it back if it's not a good deal for anybody. But we do have free money on the table right now for something. We have to take advantage of that, in my opinion. And then we can always take it back later. Nobody's going to get mad at us. It doesn't affect us in any way negatively.
Is it possible, I don't know what it would take to put some dollars and cents towards that, and who would even look into what it would take to renovate? What kind of, is that a developer?
That's a very, very large question, because saying renovated is what? Renovated as a distillery brew pub, renovated as an apartment complex, renovated as a hotel, renovated simply as a warehouse. a million different things to renovate it as. The problem is, and the reason that it looks like it does, is it's economically unfeasible to renovate for anything that is going to return an investment on it that makes sense for the investment you put into it. So structurally, it's very, very sound. There's no question about it. It used to be an auto business that could literally put automobiles on the second floor. Economically, it's obsolete. Structurally, you could do a lot of things with it. Economically, it won't work.
Well, but respectfully, I can't go to the citizens of Middletown and say, Middletown, it's economically obsolete, and they're just going to say, okay. I mean, it's taken a huge leap of faith with no backing, and that's where I have the problem. I don't, our city manager says it's economically obsolete, so we just go with that. That's where I don't.
Well, and then, yeah, I agree with that. Therein lies the other issue is, like the city manager said, everybody's definition of what it should look like is different. Therefore, it's going to have a different price tag for everyone. That's the difficult part.
Absolutely. That's why I say this is not an easy, an ask. I just don't.
I mean, if you want to, just like when I flip a house, you can put granite countertops in, you can put any type of countertop you want. It's just, but it's sitting there and we have an opportunity. So if we don't want to do it, I understand.
I think everything should be an option at this point. I mean, I really do. I mean, at least look into it. It doesn't hurt to look into anything and at least try. We have options.
Well, we need to pick a direction one way or the other. In the end, we can't just sit here, and punt forever on the building. So at some point, we got to be able to stand up and take.
It's only getting more expensive to reconstruct things as well. Those prices are only going to go up. So it's not like a now or never, but at some point we have to do something with it. Otherwise, it sits there for 10 more years. We're already a year out, essentially.
Let me ask you this.
Do anything.
With the land bank, I mean, I know you said this grant by this week or end of the month. Would the land bank consider that without that grant?
Would the land bank consider what?
Demolishing it if that's a route that the council decides to go down the road.
I didn't ask them that. I don't know. I asked them if they would cover the 25% so the city wouldn't have to pay anything, and they didn't seem to want to do that. So I doubt that. Okay. Maybe they would do some type of match. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I just think it's too quick. We're sitting here talking about communication, and here we are 1 week out, and we just want to say apply for a grant to demo a historic building. For me, it's just too quick. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying this is too quick.
But it's also to apply to have the opportunity to tear it down. It's not to tear it down. I guess therein lies the difference for me. That would give us plenty of time to have public meetings or whatever we need to have.
Do you know, and these are a lot of nuances, you may not, but the strings attached to that, as far as when anything would have to be executed by?
I don't know the answer to that.
That would help. If for some reason something needed to be done within the next 18 months, we may not be in the position to execute. I'm just throwing out numbers.
I'd rather see a development plan before I was going down that path, but we're not there, obviously.
If you talk, I agree with that too. I also think one thing to consider is what any developer is going to say is whatever space they take over, they want it to be as developable as possible. Right now, they're 9 months out from even being able to touch anything. So I think at the bare minimum, 106, I believe it's called, we should at least look into that to at least give said potential developer the opportunity to do something with it. Right now, we're just sitting on it.
Mr. Pelnick, would you mind sharing with council the numbers that you have that show that the Manchester is economically unfeasible, or whatever you had to come up with that determination?
The numbers that I have would be tied to the 35 or so years that I've done, urban economic development and adaptive reuse of those type of buildings, and understanding the amount of public subsidy that would be required to make that work. When I say it's economically unfeasible, I'm making a determination that this body would not likely want to approve the amount of subsidy it would take to make it work. I mean, in effect, anything can work economically, but the question becomes how to fill the gap. And the gap becomes very large in order to make that work. So seeing, lots and lots of these projects, and I understand the level of gap that would be there. So, we'd be talking the multiples of millions, and that probably is not a very fiscally responsible way to do it. So that's why I make that determination.
Is that on Snyder or is that on Manchester both?
It's in both cases, but oftentimes you'd be looking at a project that would involve both buildings. It would be very hard, and that's why you saw Mr. Grau when he came forward, that it was to involve both buildings. They're a single property parcel, I believe, and usually, typically, you'd want to do something to control both and do something with both.
Multiple millions is over both properties.
Lots of multiples when it's both buildings, yeah.
I would say, personally, to me, I'm not an expert in that field, but to redevelop versus rebuild, you're looking at almost double the amount. Would you say that that's right?
I think that's very fair. And a good answer would be like a hotel, because a hotel's been talked about for the Manchester. And if you're building a limited service from scratch, purpose-built hotel, you might be in the $175,000 to $200,000 a room category. We were just working on an adaptive reuse boutique hotel in downtown Racine that's about $375,000 a room. And, that's about the difference to try to take an older building. And that building was in much, much better shape than is the Manchester.
I would say at the bare minimum, this council needs to figure out, do we want to redo the whole area? Do we want to approve that? Put apartments down there, get people downtown constantly to where businesses are going to open up? Or do we want to sit on a building that's going to cost twice as much money to redo ultimately, that maybe one day a developer decides to come around and subsidize themselves and subsidize our city and our citizens? I think that's where it pretty much lies at this point.
Is it possible to have a joint meeting with the Historic Commission and City Council to discuss this so that we have ultimate buy-in from our Historic Commission about the Manchester Snyder?
If there's a request, we can certainly ask them and ask to call a joint.
To me, it's a big topic and it's well worth.
Huge topic.
It's the future of what our downtown looks like that we've been trying to figure out for the last 10 years since I graduated high school. And we're still in the same spot, but actually only worse because that building's sat for so long. At some point, we have to make a decision. And we can keep punting it, or we can actually tackle it head on. So I would request a meeting as well.
Yeah.
Again, that goes back to the same idea of we do need a special meeting question.
I can
be the
Yeah.
particular,
Okay.
but if you would like to send
will
it via
accept
email, we'll be happy to do that. Somebody's got to be the rules person, I guess.
I'm going to write this down before I. And then, as far as applying for this grant, it's fast. I completely agree. I'm not even sure if we're anywhere in the realm of being ready to make that decision. I don't know how long those funds would even be able to be used for. And that would be critical to me, because there is a public perception with even applying for it. I get that. If you're able to figure out, when those funds could be used, it's Tuesday with this thing's due at the end of the week. I just don't know that we're there.
Well, I agree with Tal in the sense that we do need to ask the public what they want or what they think. I mean, that's important, but I also agree with Zach. We can't just keep sitting on it. So we weren't elected to just sit on stuff. We were elected to make changes. And so I think both have great ideas, but something needs to give on those buildings eventually. Yeah. Whether we do get with developers or whether we tear them down, something has to give eventually.
Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying a week's too. It's just.
I'm okay with not applying.
No, I understand. We understand where you come from.
I'm totally.
That's
on board.
fast.
We got to have a plan.
That's fast.
You could always
We had to fight for so long to get the building back.
Yeah.
It's,
I know.
decide to ask the planning, historic
Historic Commission.
staff members, people who deal with that, to look into the grant, to contact the land bank, to look into the grant, find out what the ramifications are and the specifications, and bring back information. You can always direct staff to do that.
Well, and I would, at this point, because it is so soon, and I don't know if council would need to, does council need to approve the application for the grant? If not, I would defer to staff to say, if they read into it and say, hey, given all these processes that they know we would have to go through, it still may be feasible that we would use the grant. I would defer to staff to say, go ahead and apply for it if they're able to do it without council.
We called the land bank today to ask particularly the question about the 106 review and whether that time frame would bump us out of the eligibility. So I didn't ask the ultimate question of, how long, is there a date final to use the grant, but we asked the question particularly about the 106 review and whether that 9 months would cause problems. And I believe what we were told, Ms. Combs is here, that that would probably put us out of the first round of funding, but they anticipate there will be additional rounds of funding. So that they could still work on it with that 9-month lag.
Is it a like first come first served thing where we would it would behoove us to apply in the first round so that we were at the top of the list? Because if so, then charge forward in my
I didn't ask that particular question. The only timing question we asked was that concern about the 106 review and whether that would knock us out of eligibility effectively.
I don't see a problem with applying. Here's where my rationale is. I don't see any problem with applying personally. I know we've all got different we know we want to talk to the community regardless. That's clear. No one up here is saying we want to push forward demoing Snyder or Manchester without a full community discussion about it. That being said, I also don't want to miss out on grant money. So I'm supportive of the application with the understanding that council would never approve a demolition without a full community discussion about it. That's where I stand. We know where Mr. Mood stands. I think we know where Mr. Farrell stands on it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with applying for it. I agree 100% that community needs to have input on this.
Absolutely.
I mean, we cannot be tearing down historic buildings without community input.
Nope.
Well, we're going to have months to.
Yeah, sure we will.
6 to 9 months. I mean, that's a fair amount of time, in my opinion.
So I'm going to email Ms. Skank about setting up a meeting with the Historic Commission specifically. And then, of course, we want to involve anyone in the community at that meeting that would have vested interest. If there's anyone in the city staff that specifically works on the historic aspects, we'd love to have them come and speak as to maybe the history of what has occurred there, and if there's any opinions on what the current status of the building is that might be helpful for that discussion, and hopefully we can do that soon, because I also don't like sitting on stuff for too long either. And this one's been around for a while.
Right.
Are we clear as mud on that one, too?
So my understanding is that 3 members of council support staff looking into and applying for the grant. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
If it applies, we think it applies.
If appropriate.
Yeah, if appropriate, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have one other new business item, if we want to move on to something a little bit less controversial, I think.
A little bit easier, huh?
Yeah. I'm interested in taking our Purple Heart and Hidden Heroes status to a new level and elevate our efforts there. So I've spoken to quite a few members of veterans groups in the community and would like to propose that we create some sort of a veterans committee or board or council that helps ultimately be like as a central hub for local communications for veterans and their families, and kind of coordinating ways for our community to honor their service. We've got a lot of different entities doing it, and it's amazing. And I'd love to see us communicate together in some fashion so that we can. There's a lot. I went to the virtual Hidden Heroes City Summit last week, and there were a lot of really great efforts that communities are making, and I think this would let us kind of sink our teeth into that a little bit more. So the first step, if people are interested in that, is I'd like to host just a meeting of different interested parties so that we can brainstorm, what this even looks like. Do we have representatives from different groups, officially part of it? Do we just hold a meeting, once a month for people to come to? Like, how organized do we even want to do this or not? Because I want to listen to the veterans and what they want for their community. So I thought about the 3rd of March. I know Amy looked into whether council chambers are available. but the 3rd of March at 17:30 here in council chambers. I've contacted a few different veterans groups. They said that they would be available that evening. Council, what are your thoughts on it, as to what we've been doing, where we could go with it?
What was the date?
And I'm not asking that council has to be there either by any means. It's the 3rd of March at 17:30. I just am looking to the concept of doing something to coordinate our efforts for veterans across the city so we can focus the Purple Heart City aspects, the Hidden Hero City, and communicate with our veterans. I know, and let me give you a little bit of the nexus behind this. When my husband and I moved here to Middletown, obviously we weren't in the veteran network here at all, and we never made it into that network, even by the time Ron passed. So it wasn't easy to figure out where to go. The VA is not really the place to go. The county is helpful, but you don't feel that personal touch of the community when you go to like the VA or the county. And I think that this would help make it feel more of a community for our veterans here. So that's kind of my nexus behind that too.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. You can be the person to lead that.
Great.
You don't want me leading that probably, but
Sounds good. Okay, so I'm proposing the 3rd of March at 17:30. Do we have to do anything? I mean, it's not an official public meeting.
If more than 2 of you attend, it is.
Right.
So we're going to advertise it as a public meeting to be on the safe side.
Okay.
It'll be March the 3rd here in council chambers at 5:30. And we'll put the appropriate notices out for that.
Okay, great. I don't have a name, just a meeting about veterans. Because I want other people to help come up with that.
there's your name.
Great. No problem. Okay, any other new business? This is quite the evening of new business. Okay, with that, we have a request to move to executive session under the authority of ORC 121.22G1 to consider the employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
Before you move, before anybody moves, there are actually 2 separate items. They both fall under this category. Council may take action. So the screen will go to executive session, and then when you all come out of executive session, for the people watching at home, so that they kind of know what's going on.
And then we'll go back in after that.
Yes, you come back in and adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Do we have a motion? We have a second. Mr. Moon.
Second.
Ms. Gank, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
We have a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Gank, you please call the roll.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Yes.
Okay, and we will not have an item to vote on this evening. We mentioned we may when we went to executive session, so we just wanted to clarify for the record for anybody watching. But we do have one more executive session we're going to move to, and following which we will adjourn until February 25th at 1600 or 4 p.m. That's for our strategic planning session. That'll be at Atrium Hospital, the 4th floor, in the auditorium conference room. So let's see. I guess, do I have a motion to move to executive session under the authority of ORC 121.22G1 to consider the employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Gank, you please call the roll.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes. Okay, so we will adjourn until February 25th at 1600 following our executive session. Until then, blue skies over Middletown.